Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Premiership Podcast. We're your hosts, Jacob.
And Elijah.
Let's get crack-a-lacking into the Indigenous Round, where we celebrated Sir Douglas Nicholls Round. I butchered that name badly, but let's get cracking into the Sunday game with Collingwood and Carlton,
Yep.
where Collingwood got up against the Blues.
Yep. So pretty dominant from Collingwood, beating Carlton 85 to 57 at the
Mm,
MCG. Um I don't it wasn't really that close. The
mm,
whole game from the beginning, Collingwood kind of just put their foot down and
mm.
put them to rest. Um what are some of the standouts from this one that you saw?
The standouts I saw were Still Sidebottom played a fantastic game,
Hmm.
I feel.
Yeah.
Um, defensively, Darcy Moore played one of the games of his career. Unfortunately, his 11 intercept mark got put down to 10, so he didn't beat the record of intercept marks. But he played a fantastic game and is putting up his name in the spotlight for All Australian captaincy. Scott Pendlebury's putting up great numbers as per usual for the veteran, and yeah, like Collingwood's all round as a team, as a collective, are playing really well compared to Carlton, where they lost the game straight from the get go. But then once the game was finished, as we discussed last week, Elijah, once the game's done, they play good football, and during the third quarter, they were competitive. Got into the body of Nick Dacos. Nick Dacos got him fine. Um, and were really physical. And why they didn't bring that from the beginning, we don't know.
Yeah. I mean, from halftime onwards, Carlton kind of kept it so both teams only kicked 2 goals in the second half.
Mm,
Um, which is a credit to, I guess, or 3 goals, sorry, in the
mm,
second half. A credit to Carlton, doing something, but I think it was still too little, too late. Um, and I think this has been a similar theme as well with Carlton. Set shot inaccuracy and inaccuracy in
mm,
front of goal. They kicked 7 goals, 15 behinds.
mm,
So, I mean, on one hand, yeah, you got goals on the board. I mean, Kerno had three, Mackay had two, but each of those players still had two behinds to go with those.
mm,
So, I mean, I don't think the job's really quite done yet. I feel like
mm,
there's a lot of ways to go. I mean, you had four players from Carlton that only kick behinds.
mm.
So, I mean, I still think, yeah, there's still a lot of work for Carlton to do, especially in front of goal.
I don't
Um,
think it's just the goals. You got players like Paddy Cripps, who's out of form. Sard, who's still a fantastic player. He's just getting shut down week after week. So they need to find other avenues to attack going into the forward line besides their usual suspects. Sam Doherty played a fantastic game, I feel, though. Sam Doherty is an outlier. But where do they go from here, Elijah? What can they do to improve to tell their fans, hey, we may not be making finals this year again, even though it's very disappointing.
mhm.
What can they show that can give their fans some hope going into next year?
Well, looking at the stats for, I guess, this game, they had the same amount of inside 50s as
Mm,
Collingwood at 51 apiece. So, I mean, if you really think about it, same amount of inside 50s, same efficiency, statistical wise, that should mean it should be a close game. That should be like a draw. But no, they ended out losing by nearly 5 goals.
mm,
So I think it really does come down to efficiency in front of goal. Um, and I mean, they had two more scoring attempts than
mm,
Collingwood too. So in theory, if both teams only kick seven behinds, like Collingwood did, Carlton win by two
mm,
goals.
mm.
So I think that's still something that they really need to figure out. Um, I think they also need to start from the center bounce in the first quarter. They need to get in the right, you know, atmosphere because it's not
Mindset.
happening. It's getting blown out in the first quarter, first 2 quarters, and that's just what's ending it for them. They can't come back,
Mm.
especially against a team like Collingwood, where they're probably the best team in the comp. I think everyone would probably agree, and they're not. Carlton's just not rocking up, and it's too late
Mm.
because Collingwood's that good. I mean, if you did that against a Sydney, sure, you can probably get away with it.
Mm.
It'll be interesting to see next week when they play, but against Collingwood and those other upper teams, which coming off last year, you'd expect to be competitive with.
Mm.
You'd expect to be pushing top four. You can't be showing up with this performance. I really
Mm.
feel. Um,
We do like to poke a bit of fun at Carlton, but I do. I don't understand, but at the same time, we see the frustrations of the Carlton fans, and we feel sympathetic for those fans because they haven't won a grand final since 1995. So they want to, and they haven't been in the final since 2013. So
or
the
even then,
Carlton,
even then,
the,
2013 is only because of Essendon saga.
mm, so the Carlton fans are pleading for some um some sort of success. So who knows where the boys will end up at the end of the year? They could be maybe scratching top eight, but I don't think they'll be making top eight this year.
Yeah, I would agree. I was going to ask you as well.
Mm.
I don't think it's reasonable to assume this Carlton team is going to make finals this year.
Mm.
It's just even though it's not even bye round yet, it's probably still too late. I mean, you have teams
Mm.
scratching it. I think Adelaide, Geelong are just in the top eight by percentage, and then you have, if I remember right,
Fremantle.
Fremantle, Essendon, and I think Gold Coast just hanging on. I'm just
Mm.
outside the top eight. Um, I don't think for Carlton's really at that level yet.
Mm.
So
And you got the upper teams really making their way out of the pack, out of that middle pack. They were sent for finals.
yeah, for sure. I mean, Collingwood's been a game ahead for
Mm.
weeks now.
Mm.
So I
Good
mean,
on them. Good on Collingwood. They're continuing their good form from last year.
yeah, good on them. Um,
On to the next game.
yeah. So
On to the next game.
let's go on to the next one. Going over to Dreamtime at the G. Saturday night. Essendon getting over the Tigers by a point.
The
Uh,
Durham effect.
yeah, the
Durham
Dharma
effect.
effect. Even Jack Harlow was posting about this one on his
Ooh.
Instagram. It's an instant classic, he said. Um,
Mm.
it was a ripper. This is the only one that I got wrong in my tipping this week. Did you see this game? How did it kind of?
I did watch the entirety of this game. It was quite the arm wrestle. Like there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of lead changes. Richmond players getting into good form, but I won't go into the news as of late in terms of their coach. We'll go into it after we discuss this game. I feel, or even later into the episode when we discuss the final messages. But really, it came down to one last kick, and each team gave their all that night. But I do want to point out one player, and I love this guy a bit. Anthony McDonald Teppenwoody needs to raise his fitness levels because he is not the player he used to be. And that's nothing against him because he's had quite the stellar career with highlights that can go for hours. Um, but unfortunately, there are holes in both teams, like fitness, defense, building up youth, veterans leaving. So, like Trent Cotchin, he played a fantastic game, but he could be leaving by the end of the year. He could be retiring with Jack Rewalt. Jack Rewalt took a fantastic mark this game as well.
Mhm.
Um, but really, both teams gave their all, and I enjoyed the spectacle. And Durham, ironically, being an ex-VFL player at Richmond, gave it back to him by saying, "You should have drafted me, but I'm a bummer now." So, what did you think of it, Elijah?
I think it was a very good game. I think
Mm,
Essendon, they deserve this one. Just on tipping Woody. So he got, 9 disposals. He got 6
mm,
tackles, 3 marks, and 6 score involvements.
mm,
They're kind of main stats. Most of his possessions were uncontested as well.
mm,
Um, I think he's just a bit older.
mm-hmm,
Not quite in the stellar form he was before his first retirement. So,
mm-hmm,
um, I mean, he's still a very good role player for the Dons, and I think he's a
mm,
good cult figure to have there. Um,
mm. Yeah, I do agree with that.
yeah, but I mean, across the board for Essendon, you had some really good guys. Zach Merritt,
Zach
fantastic
Merritt,
game.
fantastic. Mm,
If it wasn't for a couple of other guys, he would have been my player of the round. He was
mm,
just phenomenal. 8 marks, 7 tackles, and 39 disposals. I mean, that's fantastic.
mm.
Um, Jordan Ridley as well, really good game. 14 marks. Um, and yeah, McGrath, you know,
Zach
but
Thatcher played a really good game as well, I feel like.
definitely.
Down back.
Yeah, no, I loved his game too.
Mm.
Um, and even what Durham,
Wiedemann, Wiedemann
Menzie,
played a
yeah,
very good game.
yeah. So Wiedemann, Menzie, and Durham all had 2 goals each. Really good games from all those guys.
Mm,
Um, I'm getting more sold on this Essendon team. I don't think they're in the top 8 yet, though. I think
you
it's
think?
still a
Okay.
tough race to get into the 8.
Mm-hmm.
It'll kind of depend on a few teams' forms.
Mm,
If they regress a little. Um, so Adelaide, St Kilda, Geelong, I feel like are the 3 to watch out for.
mm-hmm.
See if they drop. Um, I think probably St Kilda's probably the one to look out for to drop. Just because Geelong
Mm-hmm.
and Adelaide have shown greater heights more recently, whereas
Mm-hmm.
St Kilda's been kind of really high until round 4, and they've kind of slowly regressing since,
Mm.
or being found out more rather. So, um, this is a good game. It was a bit of a scrap,
Very good game.
bit of a low scoring one, but it was very good. Um, on Richmond, we'll probably talk about the whole dilemma with their
Damien
coach.
Hardwick.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll talk about them at probably the end of the episode.
Yep.
Um, but in the meantime, I mean, you had some good games from a few good guys. That they worked really hard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Taranto, he had 33 disposals, 5 marks. Bolton had 2 goals and 7 tackles. Rioli, Martin, all really good games. Um, so I mean, even Nankervis,
No,
he came back this week or last week?
yeah, he did first game back this week.
Yeah. I mean, even then, like, you're a really good game coming back. I mean, 16 hitouts, 5 marks, 6 tackles. I mean, for a big guy, that's pretty good.
Mm.
Definitely.
Um,
Not some English levels, but very good. Yeah.
I want to touch upon not the game, but the pre-game. Um, it was a very good spectacle, celebrating the Indigenous culture of Australia and the First Nations people. It was really fantastic to see that, and it really represents inclusiveness and really getting back to the roots of we are all equal. So I really loved the Indigenous Dreamtime pre-game, and a bit of a funny moment I felt from this game as well is at the halftime. You see Kevin Sheedy having a sing with Michael Long, and Kevin Sheedy wasn't even singing. If you watch the replay, he's just moving his mouth, and I found that a bit funny. But other than that, Michael Long, all Indigenous players, past, present, and emerging. It was great to see the culture being presented in such a way and an enjoyable way as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm not Indigenous, but I think it was
Yeah.
presented really well.
Mm.
Yeah, no, very good.
On to the next game.
Okay. Next up, going back to the Sunday, we've got the Hawks demolishing the Eagles. I mean, this was something. West Coast fans not too chuffed, but if you go for Hawthorn, hey,
Good dub.
hey, we take those.
And an interesting stat from this game, it's the first time a football club that's on the bottom of the ladder has been a team above them by 100 points or more since 1979, if I remember that correctly.
Yeah,
Either 1979 or 1915. I can't remember the date exactly, but Hawthorn put on a spectacle. Mitch Lewis, 6 goals,
yeah,
and Kajitsky put on a fantastic game. Josh Weddle, the Rising Star nomination from this round, he played fantastically. And I really feel Hawthorn are showing some room of improvement in terms of their midfield. They've put in a midfield that will play for the next 8 years. They're showing a forward one, Mitch Lewis. Kaczynski, welcome back. I've missed him. They're building a good forward one, and they've got the mature defense. Compare that to West Coast. The only player I can really shout out for, 2 players that I can shout out for West Coast is Oscar Allen, who played his heart out the whole game, and Jinbi. Jinbi is going to be fantastic for the Eagles moving forward. But compared to the Hawks, West Coast don't really have anything really set in stone to rebuild the team. So do they look at trading the likes of their mature players to target the draft? But other than that, Hawthorn just demolished the Eagles.
yeah. I mean, I would like to shout out Dom Sheed as well. I mean, 30 disposals, 8 marks, 5 tackles, 2 goals. I thought he was also a pretty good standout. And Witherden as well, similar stats with 10 marks. They were probably the only few that really did something. I guess the ball didn't go to the Eagles forward half that much, so Oscar Allen didn't have much opportunity. But yeah, so on West Coast players, where do they go from here? I want to ask you a few of the guys, because I mean, Mitch Lewis single-handedly outscored the Eagles in this game.
38 points to 26.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a few guys and their ages, and you tell me, do they stay at the Eagles or should they go?
Trade or retire. Okay.
Or not even. Just the West Coast want to get rid of them or should they keep them?
Okay.
Shannon Hearn. He's 35. He hasn't played for a while. Go?
Get rid of him.
All right. Nick Natanui, 32. He hasn't played in a while.
I'd honestly trade him.
Trade him?
Because I do trade him to a Melburnian club because they've got that Wilson guy and that number 40, Jamison, I think his name is.
Yep.
Jamison is good. He also played pretty well. Yeah, but I'd trade Nanui. He's still got another year or two in him, even though his knees are a bit stuffed.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a fan of Jamison. But okay, cool. Elliot Yo, 29. He's been a bit in and out with injuries, like the rest of these guys.
I'd keep him as that mature player who can lead the young troops.
Okay. Jack Darling, 30 years old.
Trade.
Yep. Jamie Cripps, also 30.
Keep.
Okay. Why would you keep Jamie Cripps? Similar to Rio?
Similar to Yo and similar to like a Luke Bruce sort of role. He's
Okay.
that small forward who'll kick you couple goals, and will teach the younger blokes how to develop their forward craft.
Okay, cool. I can get behind that. Andrew Gaff, also 30.
Trade. I know his I think his contract ends this year, so I'd trade him from Melbourne.
Okay, or if his contract ends, does that not mean he can just go in free agency?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. So West Coast probably, you'd say, not sign him back.
No.
Okay. Couple others. Luke Shuey, 32. I remember right, he also got the Norm Smith. Yeah.
You'd keep him as a one club player.
Okay.
He'll finish his tenure at West Coast.
You think he retires when his contract ends?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure how long that contract goes for.
I think it's another year.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And last one, Jeremy McGovern. Now, this is an interesting one. Because he's had problems with his knees for a while. He's been out of the side for a bit. And his brother, I think, still plays down in Melbourne.
Carlton. Mitch McGovern.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you keep him? Do you send him off to Carlton? Somewhere close by?
I'd trade him just because you need to restart everything from scratch. And of course, you got to keep those mature players like Shuey, Yo, and Jamie Cripps.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like he's not enjoying his footy in WA. That's just my personal opinion. Fantastic grand final player Jeremy McGovern is, but I feel like it's time for him to go. So then West Coast can start building up from there.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. I just want to get your thoughts on that one. And if you listen to this in the comments, tell us what you think as well.
Indeed.
Yeah. Kind of shifting the narrative over back to Hawthorn. So coming off the defensive half, this is nearly towards the end of the game. This kind of stats popped up. I'm like, wow, that's pretty notable. Moving the ball out of the defensive half, Hawthorn scored 10 goals for 64 to 0. West Coast did not get any goals based on movement from the defensive half or a single point. So I think that's something for West Coast you look at, and that's pretty alarming. Basically, if the ball goes into the your defensive half, you're not getting anything out of it.
Swing shot. It's all about that swing shot, counter attack.
Yeah, and a lot of teams are really good at it. Even the bottom teams like North Melbourne, Hawthorn, they still show that they can work.
They're trying.
Yeah,
and they're trying.
And the effort's
Tyler
there.
Brockman was one that I saw. That was one of the highlights where he went from the halfback 50, bouncing it to about the half forward mark, and he kicked it to a player. I think it was Mitch Lewis. But that's another notable one. Tyler Brockman's had a fantastic game as well.
Yeah, I even saw a few times James Sicily came up the ground a bit, kind of took a mark, and then kept going forward. Out of the centre bounce, West Coast, once again, nothing. And Hawthorn got 2 goals out of it. And then in their forward half, the ball's down there. West Coast got 4 goals too, 26. That was their final score. So every single point that they got, it went back into their forward half, and they had to kind of keep it there. It was a bit of a struggle, and then they scored out of it. That's what the statistics are saying anyway. I watched the second half. They didn't score in the second half.
Pretty much retaining possession in the forward half.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Whereas Hawthorn, 10 goals, 5. 65. So it's pretty alarming if you're West Coast. Mainly that first one.
Yeah. I do want to say that West Coast do have their excuses, but at the same time, they got to start thinking about the bigger picture. Obviously, this year's done for West Coast. It's now about what can they show that's going to tell their Eagles fans, because they're a pretty big fan base over in WA compared
Oh yeah.
to their counterparts Fremantle. Um, what can they show that shows that they're going to build something and say, oh, wait another 3, 4, 5 years, and we'll have this list of players that will stay, and we'll build this club to come back and attack the finals. That's what West Coast should be aiming for. Of
Mhm.
course, they have their injuries, which is a huge setback. I think like 3/4 of their list is injured.
Yeah.
It's just about now proving to the Eagles fans where can they go in the future, the bigger picture, and what can Adam Simpson do in his tenure or however long he has left, to show the next coach that's coming in to the Eagles, because Adam Simpson won't be there for the next final. He'll be building up their list for the next coach to attack the final.
Yeah. I mean, if I were in charge of West Coast, I'd probably aim to do more traditional rebuild. You know, you can keep
Mm-hmm.
kind of some of the older guys, but I'm mainly looking at building up the youth. If they get the number one
Mm.
pick and they manage to get Harley Reid, I doubt
I
they.
don't think they should.
Yeah.
I don't think they should.
Mm,
I don't think they should attack Harley Reid because he's a Melbourneian player. I think they should trade to Melbourneian clubs to get as much youth as possible instead of going for this one individual player.
yeah. I would agree with that. I think most people kind of say, yeah, don't think he's going to West Coast. Even though he's
Mm,
projected to be number one pick, I don't think he's going there.
mm,
Purely based on he's probably going to want to stay in Melbourne. I mean,
mm-hmm,
Hawthorn, North Melbourne, they're Melbourne clubs. You'd rather go there.
mm.
Probably Hawthorn of the two, based on this performance.
Hell yeah, hell yeah,
But
hell yeah.
yeah. Um, it definitely helps if Fremantle's it could. Um,
Mm,
during I guess the next 4 years, while
mm-hmm.
they're rebuilding, because they'll keep footy more alive, I guess, so to speak.
In WA.
Yeah, I mean, it means you lose more games to
Mm-hmm.
Fremantle, but that means that at least the football community during that time is a bit more stable.
Mm,
So it helps if Fremantle is still a very competitive and good side. Um,
mm,
like if they dish out what they've done this week and the week before consistently, like yeah, definitely. Um,
100%.
but yeah, it's an interesting one.
Mm.
But I definitely go for a more traditional rebuild and just say, look, we know we are the biggest fan base in the entire AFL, but stick in there. We'll be back soon.
100%.
Yeah.
On to the next game.
Yep. On to the next one. Go Hawkers.
Go Hawks.
Okay. Uh going over to the Friday night. We had I guess Port Adelaide, Melbourne. Um,
Mm,
I don't know, repping their Indigenous names. Um, yeah, this is a very good game. Port Adelaide sneaking over the line by 4
mm-hmm.
points. Butters, really, really good game. Rosie, Houston, the younger guys from, I think it's the same draft almost. Um, really, really good stuff. Melbourne did put up a good fight, but I think the inconsistencies showed
Mm.
against obviously a better side. What did you make out of this one?
Wet weather conditions for a large period of this game, and Port Adelaide just showed real excitement. And obviously, they had their home ground advantage, but Port Adelaide just keep fighting. I don't really want to talk about this game per se. I want to talk about the outside of it in terms of Ken Hinkley and what Warren Treadray said to the media when they lost to Adelaide by a fair amount. Warren Treadray said to the community of Adelaide and to the press that they should sack Ken Hinkley. Since that loss, Port Adelaide have won every single game.
Mm.
Ken Hinkley and the Port Adelaide Football Club need to decide whether or not Ken Hinkley is the right person for the club, because it is going to be the biggest coaching call of Port Adelaide's football club career, because he is a very good coach. Unfortunate he hasn't gone to premierships, but he's a very good coach. And this win against an upper team in Melbourne does it prove to the Port Adelaide Football Club that Ken Hinkley is the right man for the job.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the best wins he's had, for sure. And I think it was a really, really good performance. I think he should probably keep it. I don't see a reason why he should move past him. I think at this point, they'd really have to mess something up for him to go this season. Because, I mean, I can see them pushing for almost a premiership. I think there's a few teams which are just one step ahead that might get ahead of him. But, I mean, they're on a 7-win streak at the moment. Same with Brisbane. And they're looking spectacular. So, I don't see a reason at the moment to even consider that, really. Ignoring that, who would you really replace him with? I guess they've got a few assistant coaches over there. Maybe Damien Hardwick. Maybe not a Clarko if he comes back. Maybe not.
No,
But
no.
I'm not too sure. I think we've seen Hinkley with the power for so long. I just can't see anyone else there. Yeah.
Going to the game. Port Adelaide's only weakness, in my opinion, is being able to hold down a big key forward, because their defense is quite small compared to, say, taking on a Wiedemann or a Mitch Lewis. So I feel like that's their only weakness in the game, in their game. But the fact that they didn't have any Charlie Dixon, Todd Marshall, and Mitch Georgiades, and they sort of placed one of our ex-boys, Ryan Burton, down forward. He played a fantastic game. The Burton man. And a couple others like Darcy Burn-Jones and Rosie obviously kicking that last goal, Finn Lathan. They've got a fantastic, aggressive side to them. Defensively is the question I'd like to ask of Port Adelaide. Can they sustain a defense that can lock down a big, tall forward? And going back to Ken Hinkley, I do feel like he's the man for the job. Yeah, like every coach, he has his ups and downs, and being an AFL coach is one of the most stressful jobs in the world. But I do feel like he's the man for the job to push them for a premiership within the next 3-4 years.
For sure. Melbourne did kick 7 goals in that third quarter. I think that's something to just keep an eye on. The momentum shifting there. But I mean, Fritsch and McDonald kicked 2 goals each for Melbourne. So, I mean, they can kind of hold them down a bit. But, I mean, yeah, both teams kicked 11 goals each. I think they just outplayed Melbourne, really. With, I guess, less personnel that you'd ideally have in your 22. I think Port Adelaide very clearly now the better team than Melbourne. When Melbourne had, really good, I guess, first and third quarters. Port Adelaide's just that bit better.
Melbourne are missing Jacob Van Rooyen.
True.
I'm not sure if he played, but here's a question for you, Elijah. How do you see the Gordon and Grundy combination going at the moment?
Sometimes it works, sometimes not so much.
Inconsistent.
Inconsistent. Yeah, for sure. Ben Rurian did
Mm.
play, by the way.
Ben Ryan did play.
He did play. Everyone fantasy team. So just checked. Um, it's it's an interesting dichotomy. I don't think either of them, because of the way they work, it's not working as well as I might have, with say Luke Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Gorn had 30 hitouts, Grundy had 15, and then Lysette had 22. So in theory, yeah, you beat out your opponent, but I I'm tossed because on one hand, yeah, it's shown sometimes it can work, but against better sides, I'm not as convinced.
Mm.
I mean, it's good to have that big body down back or down forward, but
Mm.
when they can just, a lot of the time, I mean, we saw in this game, they just almost ignore them. Not a
Mm.
whole lot you can do sometimes.
Would you expect more from Grundy being more of an athletic player compared to Gorn, or
Going off what he did at Collingwood, yes, but reasonably speaking, I mean, you're sharing a ruck role with Max Gorn,
mm.
one of the best rucks in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're sharing if you're going down forward, you're sharing that with Fritsch, McDonald, you know,
Ben Brown,
yeah,
Ben Ryan,
all the other guys.
Spargo?
There, yeah. Uh, I don't think reasonably you can go. He's going to have the same impact as he did at Collingwood.
Mm.
I'm not sure what he's getting paid, but I think might have bitten off more they can chew getting him.
Mm. That's fair enough.
But I'm sure if they get more synergy, it'll definitely work out. I'm no
Mm.
doubt about that.
Bit of synchronization. On to the next game.
Yep. We'll try to speed through the next few.
Mm-hmm.
So, North Melbourne getting across the line. Falling. To Sydney at Marvel Stadium on the Saturday.
By 3 points.
By 3 points. Now, I guess this is only close because of how poor Sydney's list is at the moment with their injuries. Callum Mills is still going to be another 4 weeks. And there's a lot of other guys which are in a similar boat. I think Laddams got injured as well.
Yes, he did.
So that's not good. But yeah, Sydney. Yeah, they should have won this. Is closer than I probably expected. But because of injuries, it got to the point it was. I don't think there's a whole lot to say about this one besides the final siren. You agree or disagree?
I do want to talk about Sydney a bit here. Franklin, 3 goals gone on him. Obviously due to an interchange breach. Swans managed to kick a goal with 30 seconds to go, but the Swans needed this win to sort of revive their season because they've lost the past 3-4 games, and just to scrape by, any win is a huge win in Sydney's book in terms of their injuries and really revitalizing their message of, can we attack finals again? Are they at that stage? We're not really sure yet. But as we can see, Fremantle lost 4 games in a row, and then they just blitzed the past 3 games, and they've just risen up the ladder due to that. So can Sydney do the same thing? Can this close win revive their season going forward? And with the bye coming up as well, can that rejuvenate that spirit to attack finals again? I want to say yes, but due to injuries, especially with Laddams and their ruck stock now, we're not really sure.
I mean, this is devastating for North. But Sydney, they're, yeah. I don't know if this is gonna put them into the similar boat as those other teams. I'm not sure if this will propel them because I mean, he had another injury this week. He still have a lot more good players that are still recovering. So I guess you'll be relying on players like Goulden and Papley and Parker, who they've done this heavy lifting for multiple weeks now, like
Mm,
over a month, and they're gonna have to do it again. Next week's a very
mm,
very big game against Carlton, so uh, it's gonna be rough.
mm,
I'm not as convinced this one's gonna flip around the script.
mm.
It's just really unfortunate situation for them at the moment, but they got the win, which is great, considering where this club's at. Um, but yeah, uh, you reckon we'll talk about the final siren?
Mm. You
Yeah.
can talk about that.
So I guess North Melbourne exceeded the interchange limit. Um, Teams are usually limited to about 75. That's it. If you're any over that, it's a free kick in 50 meters.
Hmm.
I think there's no question that's that happened. If anything, North Melbourne made a 77th. After
Yeah.
that goal, there was footage of, I forget who it was, came back off the field and the Shills came back on. It's a whole thing. So Sydney arguably could have another free kick and another 50. So they could have won
Mm,
by about 9 points instead of 3.
mm,
But I want to ask you this: do you think
mm.
it's too harsh uh, when someone goes over the limit, interchange limit, for a free kick and 50 meters?
I feel like a free kick is the way to go. 50
Mm-hmm.
meters is a bit too much, but I do feel as though it has been a law in the game where we had that time where we had 90 interchanges at a time. Or I think we also had a time where we had 120 interchanges in one game. And that was just the law. It was just the rules. And I do remember back to a Hawthorn Geelong game where Geelong made a breach of that, and David Hale got a free kick, and it was a centre bounce, and he got the free kick from the centre in the centre square. The free kick should be where the ball is at that period of time, and it was just very unlucky that it was in Sydney forward line. However, I do feel like the 50 meters is a bit too harsh. So pretty much free kick, yes. 50 meters, no.
I can see why. I think it's
Yeah.
very good that there's a 50-meter penalty there.
Okay.
I think the 75 limit is very set, and if you go over
Mhm.
that, that's literally the team's fault. Um, I mean, it's unfortunate you can't count. Um,
Went to
I, I
grade school, didn't you?
I guess furthermore, right?
Mm.
That uh, two players came off at the same time, pretty awkward. But
Mm.
it is what it is. I think the 50-meter penalty though, it keeps teams honest
Mm.
because like if you're in the defensive 50, like I can give away a free kick.
Mm.
But I mean, you start piling on 50s after that. It's like, okay, now there's actually meaning to it instead of, oh,
Yeah.
here's the ball, you got it anyway. Um, it keeps teams more honest, and I feel like that's good.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
because it's across the board too, it keeps everyone honest. People just can't abuse the rule, um, like they could otherwise.
That's
Um,
fair enough.
I think if Hawthorn just randomly decided to, oh, you know what, let's just go over the limit. If there's no 50 meters, they'll win the game anyway. But if they did it, I mean, they won by what, 20 goals?
Mhm.
I mean, did they do that 20 times in the last quarter? All of a sudden, West Coast win. I mean, that's a very
Yeah.
extreme example, of course, but I mean, it keeps teams honest, and I think that's
Mm.
good reason to have it.
That's fair
Um,
enough.
yeah, that's pretty much the drama from that game. Unfortunate for North, they couldn't get the chocolates,
Mm.
but it's not going to get any easier, unfortunately, next week.
for the Swans.
Yeah, you just have
Or
to,
the North.
and then the Dons, and then I guess the Giants after that in Tassie. Really better game, but you can sort of stick out a bit more. So North fans, yeah. All right. On to the next one. Just trying to speed on through. Brisbane Gold Coast at the Gabba. Q Clash. Gold Coast very competitive for the first, 3 quarters, but Brisbane pulling away in the last. I mean, McCluggage, Ashcroft, Dunkley, all really, really good games. Gunston at 13 marks. Matt Rao from the Suns had 12 tackles. I mean, a lot of guys had really good games this week. Even Humphrey from the Suns, first year, did spectacular. Jared Witts, I mean, this is one where, you thought that McInerney was the second best ruck on the comp. I'm like, Jared Witts had a bit better. Witts had 51 hitouts and McInerney had 36. So, I kind of won that one.
Get wrecked, Jacob. Get wrecked. Get wrecked, Jacob.
But no. What did you make out of this one? I'm very impressed with the Gold Coast.
I'm impressed as well. King, I think kicked 4 goals this game. He played a fantastic game, and unfortunately, Brisbane's toxic forward line, very potent forward line, got them over the line. Charlie Cameron putting on the Jets in one highlight, kicking that fantastic goal, heading it to Hipwood, quick 1-2, kick the banana. One of the goals of the week. Yeah, Gold Coast put up a fantastic fight. Lukosius played fantastically. Rao, Anderson. It's pretty much all the usual suspects that we say every week that put in, week out. And sometimes they'll have their off week, which every player does. But Brisbane, again, McCluggage, Ashcroft, who is pretty much a solid lock for Rising Star, don't you think, Elijah?
Or I put Sheasel up there.
You put
If I'm
Sheasel.
brutally honest, I like Sheasel a little bit more. Also shout out to Humphrey. Great game.
But yeah, Brisbane just blew the Suns out of the water in the last quarter and just showed why they are the more superior team in the in Queensland.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone expected this result anyway.
Mm.
I am pretty impressed though with Gold Coast because they hung in it
100%.
until the last quarter basically, and up until then, they were only 11 points down at 3/4 time. So credit where credit's due. Great effort from the Suns. But yeah, no, even no usual suspects from Brisbane. Lockie Neal, I think, got the medal for Q Clash. But yeah, no, I think usual suspects from both teams.
Played
Yeah,
stellar games.
yeah, it did kind of expose Brisbane a little. Like I guess ignoring the scoreline. Going forward. I mean, they were more efficient across the board, yes. But I guess from the clearances, especially, it's shown that there's, even though your Lockie Neals, your Ashcrofts, your McCluggages, all these guys, not as dominant as they could be, and I think they still can get in better form. Yeah.
I've got nothing else to say either. Just a really, really good win by Brisbane and Gold Coast putting up a formidable fight against greater foe.
Yeah. Good game from both teams.
Mm.
Okay. Over to Ballarat. On the Saturday, earlier in the day, Bulldogs demolishing Adelaide. I expected Dogs to win, but not by this much. Yeah, no, just from the first quarter, Dogs are out the gates. Yeah.
I've got nothing to say, but it was just the usual suspects again. Liberatore and Bontempelli put up a fantastic game. Norton flying high as always. got a bit of an underrated dog, kicking a couple goals. I did tip Adelaide in this game last week in the podcast, and unfortunately that didn't come into fruition. But yeah, Adelaide just no good. Bulldogs too good, too strong, and there's no questions as to why they can't push for top four.
Yeah. Definitely. I
Mm,
think Bulldogs is just right there, and they're on a pretty good win streak too.
mm,
Really good form. Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, usual suspects. Tim English had an okay game. I mean, he got bodied in the ruck.
mm,
It's very pretty much the same amount of time on field as O'Brien, but got out rucked 63 hitouts to 29.
mm,
But I mean, yeah, usual suspects. Bailey Smith, very, very, very good game. People have been talking about that. Bont, as usual. Libba, as usual. Disappointing from the Crows.
mm,
I think the only real standouts I'd have from them is probably Laird and Rob. That's pretty much it.
mm,
The rest were just that bit too ordinary against a very,
mm,
very informed dog side.
mm.
Yeah,
I do feel like the Crows will bounce back, though.
definitely.
They'll bounce back 100%.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, next week they're at home and they've got a very good side in Brisbane.
Ooh,
So that'll be a ripper.
100%.
But yeah, they should hopefully probably bounce back
Mm.
that game. But I don't have a lot to say about the rest of that one.
Same as I.
Bit shocked that that was dished up, but
Mm.
we'll just keep speeding through.
Speeding through.
Fremantle, I guess, while you're up, and Geelong. Geelong managing to lose. Fremantle, I predicted them to win.
Mm-hmm.
Go me. But yeah, no, by 5 goals, 106 to 77. Fremantle just outplayed them. And I think I watched a bit of this game. It was mainly through just their ball movement along the
Mm.
wings. And you know, their marking as well, just outdoing Geelong.
Mm.
O'Driscoll, I think it's second year or something.
Yep. Good second year.
10 marks. Banfield, Pierce, and Schultz all at 8 each as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just out marking and out, I guess, maneuvering this Geelong side over in Perth.
Jai Miss kicked a couple goals. I know that.
He
Jai
did.
Miss played a very good game.
Yeah, he kicked 3. So did Walters. Um, yeah.
See now, Fremantle are building a forward line where they've got Sturt, a Miss, and I think another tall forward. They've got Jackson, they've got Sean Darcy. They're actually building something, and they've got Nat Fife coming back in to the game where he's that mature. He's still exciting player. Like he did a couple don't argues either this round or the round prior. He's still exciting even though he's very injury prone. But Fremantle are going to be very exciting. They've really bounced back from a horrible 3 to 4 weeks, a couple of weeks back. But I feel like the same can be said for Geelong. They're just having a tough 2 weeks. Their midfield stocks are running low due to Dangerfield and Co being injured. Um, but I do feel as though Geelong will bounce back. Um, don't question Geelong. They're still a fantastic team. They just got beat away from home. But Geelong will bounce back.
Yeah,
100%.
you'd expect them to, definitely.
Mm.
I mean, surprisingly, this is the first time I think a while we've seen Geelong not have any player get over 20 disposals.
Wait, really?
Yep. So
Mm.
Brun and Zach Tui had 19. That was the highest on Geelong.
Ooh,
Um,
that's stiff.
you have a slew of Freo players who just out disposal them.
Mm.
I mean, Brayshaw, 33, Sarong, 28, O'Meara, 26. even going down like Lockie Schultz, O'Driscoll, Banfield, or had 20 each. I think yeah, just Fremantle's ball movement is very, very good. You could argue that in power ranking wise, better than say Essendon. I could definitely see that and argue that, but I don't want to put them in the high two yet. Especially against Geelong. They obviously don't play as well on the rounder grounds, but I saw this coming. Some other people did, but yeah, Geelong. You'd expect them to come back. You'd also expect Fremantle to continue the form. They both have some pretty important games coming up though. Next week.
Okay.
We'll get into those after the power rankings section. Which, before then, let's get into our last game. Saints getting over the line against the Giants.
The Saints won by 12 points, 92-80. King put up a fantastic game. He kicked a couple goals on return.
He got 4.
So he kicked 4.
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not I got that King or the Gold Coast King mucked up with each other, I don't know. But King, really stellar performance returning back into the squad with Caminiti as that other tall forward. Wilkie putting up fantastic efforts in the back line as always. Crouch is a standout for me in this game. Crouch is putting up some career high performances. Wagonine Malira, I think, had a career high game as well. So St Kilda getting back onto the winning list. They really needed this to boost their confidence after a couple of weeks of being down, and teams figuring them out. GWS, I'd just like to say they are doing fantastically as well. They're building up a good foundation, good midfield, good forward line. Jesse Hogan played fantastically as well. And their defence, they're building up a good defence as well. So I can see, similarly to Hawthorn, where they're going and where their trajectory is, and North Melbourne as well. In regards to what they do with Himmelberg at the end of the year, we don't really know. I'd hope he'd stay, but I doubt that he'd stay. But yeah, GWS building up a good foundation, being competitive. They've always been competitive against every single team they come up against. But St Kilda just getting the chocolates by 12 points.
Yeah. I mean, you pretty much covered all bases there. Sinclair, you got 37 disposals, very, very good, and 2 goals to go with it. And Wangani Melora, 29 disposals and 10 marks. You can't ask more from him. I mean, he's had a really, really good performance. I mean, yeah, you pretty much covered it all.
Pretty much covered, yeah.
Yeah. Giants competitive. Saints needed that one for sure. You'd expect them to get over the line next week anyway too. But this is a good one to have in your back pocket. Especially that you're sitting in 5th, only down by percentage to Melbourne is in 4th. That's pretty good to have. Compared to otherwise, where you'd be sitting between Bulldogs and Cats and 6th. Not as ideal. So, yeah.
Good on the Saints.
Good on them.
On to power rankings.
Yes. Onto the good old power rankings. So, once again, we've done them kind of beforehand. Let's go over the main things.
The main changes.
Yeah. So
Collingwood stay on top. As per usual.
Melbourne dipping down.
Melbourne dipping down. Port Adelaide going up. Brisbane going up. I think replacing Melbourne, or were they? Yeah, they replaced Melbourne.
Yeah, I think so. I think just because Port Adelaide beat Melbourne, that kind of knocks them down a bit, and just Melbourne's inconsistencies, even though they've been winning by a fair bit against other teams. That's Port Adelaide's a bit higher, and then Brisbane continuing good form. I guess
Mhm.
similar to Melbourne, there are some inconsistencies with their game, but
Mhm.
I think they still deserve to be up there in conversation.
But the Bulldogs are catching up quite quickly, though.
Definitely. Um,
They're
they do lose Johannesson. I forgot to mention that one. They lose Johannesson. So going into next week, it'll be a bit rougher, I guess. But yeah, no,
Mm.
they should probably still continue that really good form. Uh,
And we do think that they are better than St Kilda,
yeah,
just by that bit of a margin there. And then Geelong and Adelaide are interchangeable. They still remain in the top eight in the power rankings, but they're very interchangeable.
yeah, for sure. Essendon, kind of the gateway team. Not
Mm.
quite there yet. They won by only a point against Richmond in a game where they only barely won in the last few seconds.
Mhm.
So not quite top eight yet.
Mhm.
We'd definitely like to see them beat some high quality opposition.
Mhm.
That's not happening next week, but maybe afterwards. Um, you know, beating some better teams. Your Adelaide's, your Geelongs, St Kilda's, those teams which they're on the cusp of just falling out. We'd like to see them
Mhm.
probably beat them a bit. If they can make it competitive at least, make it close, even win, that's going to tip them over the line, push them into the top eight.
Mm.
Even now, I think they're sitting in ninth by percentage.
I'd
So,
also say that's similar to Gold Coast and Fremantle. Gold Coast put up a formidable fight against Brisbane until that last quarter. That's why they are just above Fremantle.
mhm.
Even though Fremantle got chocolates over Geelong, who are higher. But you could also say the same for those two teams, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. I think you could even throw them with Essendon. I think all
Mm.
those teams have shown a really, really good signs. Gold Coast stayed competitive with Brisbane the whole way until the last quarter.
Mm.
Fremantle beat Geelong. Essendon have been pretty middle of the pack the whole year.
Mm.
Um, so you could definitely mix and match those however you like.
Mm.
Um, but you're kind of just waiting for those other teams to drop off that little bit before you push them
Mm.
up. Um, yeah, all those teams are good form.
Richmond staying where they are. They just lost to the Bombers by a point, so
Mm-hmm.
there's no real deviation there other than they just lost. If they won, they would have probably moved up, but because they just lost by that margin, they are just that bit better than the teams below them. We do expect them to drop due to the goings on with Damien Hardwick. Um, GWS putting up fights week in, week out, but unfortunately just not getting the wins that they require to move up the power rankings ladder. Um, Sydney Swans are below them, however, solely due to the fact that their form isn't quite there.
Yeah, the injury
Even
ridden
though
too.
that injury ridden and just bet North Melbourne due to an interchange breach. Um, but below them, the disappointing Carlton going into the bottom four. They're just inconsistent. Pretty pretty much a bore of a team to watch until they start fighting back, knowing that they've lost the game. So once they start showing that consistency that they can start a game competitively against a higher ranking team, we can start pushing them up.
Yeah,
But in terms of where they are now, we both think that they aren't good enough. We
yep,
also argued that Hawthorn might be that bit better for this round as a bit of a joke, but Hawthorn, I think solid 16th. They deserve that 16th spot because they are showing that they're that a little bit better than North Melbourne and West Coast. West Coast, unfortunate. No, not West Coast. North Melbourne, unfortunate not to beat the Swans. If they did, would you push them up or leave them there? I'd say that North Melbourne are a solid 17th team, because the West Coast are just in shambles.
yep. I mean, on the last few teams, I wouldn't say they're close at all. I think even if
You
North
think?
Melbourne get across the line against Sydney, I
Mm,
think it's more telling of Sydney's state at the moment rather than
mm,
North Melbourne's form. And I
mm,
think the West Coast Hawthorn game was a travesty. I mean, I haven't seen anything like that in a long ever.
mm.
Basically,
Since
18th
the
beating
Hawthorn dynasty.
18th beating 17th by over
Mm,
100 points. That's ridiculous. Um,
mm,
I think whilst beforehand you go, oh, they're interchangeable. You have this clearly. There is a disconnect there where West Coast
mm,
can't. They scored 26 points against the last 18th
mm,
at that point. So you can't be dishing that up uh, against a team which should be beatable. And I don't
mm,
want the excuses of we don't like traveling because everyone travels. Granted,
mm,
Melbourne teams less than others, but
mm,
everyone travels. There comes a point where it's deal with it and stop complaining. You're in the comp,
mm.
cope. So it is what it is. But I mean, West Coast clearly the worst team there. I would argue Hawthorn may be slightly better than Carlton, but just because it was
Mm,
West Coast that they've actually beaten, I'll
mm-hmm.
probably leave them there. Um,
Fair enough.
yeah.
Shall we move on to the predictions
Let's
for next round?
let's keep going through predictions for round 11. So still technically Indigenous round. Everyone will still be wearing
Mm,
their jerseys. But let's go from the start. So banger to start with for the week, Friday night, Sydney hosting Carlton.
mm. I
Yes.
do feel like Carlton will win.
Okay.
Solely because they have a ruckman. Firstly, they have a solid ruckman in Mark Gittins, and I do feel as though Sydney's injury list will um, make them not be as competitive compared to Carlton, who pretty much have no injuries to their list.
I definitely can see that. Um, and also considering Sydney's form, the SCG this year, not
Mm-hmm.
not too spectacular. Um, I have tipped Sydney. Now,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I'd probably see this as an upset, but I'd like to point to Errol Goulden.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't as flash this week as the previous two, but I think he's going to have a really big impact on this game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think he's probably better than all the other midfielders at Carlton at the moment, and
Mm-hmm.
I think he's just gonna lap up those disposals in the middle of the ground, get the ball
Mm.
moving, and that's what's gonna spark Sydney.
He's
So,
very explosive as well, isn't he? He's
oh yeah,
two-way running explosive.
oh definitely. And even though Sydney missing people,
Mm.
they still
Had
kick
Warner.
they can still kick goals,
Mm.
right? You're not flipping a coin every single time they have a set shot 15 meters out.
Mm.
So I trust Sydney more in front of goal. I trust Errol Goulden will rock up, and he's
Mm-hmm.
gonna put on a show in Sydney, and I think that it'll be close though.
Mm. It
Um,
will be.
but yeah, no, both universes I can definitely see.
Mm.
Okay, uh, going on to Saturday, St Kilda Marvel Stadium hosting Hawthorn.
St Kilda should win this quite. Not easily, but it'll be a good three-quarter game. The last quarter, St Kilda will blow us out, I reckon.
Yeah. Now, note on should I do have St Kilda, but I want to be very
Mm-hmm.
wary of Hawthorn. We know
Mm.
how they like to play up to their opposition, and they
Mm-hmm.
demolish West Coast. If they continue that form, they could do a lot of damage here.
Mm.
Um, I do see well they win, but that's more. I feel like it's more just me being a fanboy of the team
Mm.
rather than realistic. Um, so in that way, I'm going to say St Kilda should win.
Mm.
Um, but Hawthorn, they like to stay competitive. They like to fight. So we'll see.
They fight. They fight the good fight. The Hawks do.
Yeah. Okay. going to the next one. MCG, Nam versus Wagula. Or Demons versus Dockers, I guess.
Is this in Melbourne? The MCG?
MCG.
Yeah, Melbourne should win this easily.
Yeah.
Fremantle, obviously, I haven't really seen them play at the MCG this year.
I don't think they have.
Luke Jackson's first time coming up against Melbourne since he left, so that's something to look out for. But I do think Melbourne should blow them out of the water by about 30 points.
Yeah. I think this is the second time they've played here this season.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
I think they versus Collingwood here as well.
They do play them later this year. They played they lost to St Kilda in round 1 at Marvel Stadium, but they haven't been here since.
Mm-hmm.
So if it wasn't for my other uni stuff, I'd probably go to this game. But I think this is going to be closer than we think. I think Melbourne's form isn't as good as it could be. Granted, they could definitely bounce back from that Port loss. But I want to be very, very careful of how Fremantle are playing right now. Because they've just toppled Geelong. I don't know if that means anything to a lot of people. But to me, like they beat Geelong from the inside out, statistically, across the board. They just ran through them. And watching them play, they looked very, very good. Especially going along the wings and the ball movement from almost the back half, going forward, making those opportunities. I think it's going to be an interesting one to see how Melbourne can deal with that. So, definitely could go one way or the other. In saying that, I have Melbourne. So, I'm just making it excuses. But, no, realistically, I can see it.
We both want to see a good game.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
No, I can see this spilling either way. Melbourne, like the other two games, should win. I think it's going to be a lot of people going 0-3 to start the round. And tipping.
Well, fair enough.
Okay, on to the next one.
Next one.
We have Geelong hosting the Giants.
At GMHBA,
Correct.
Geelong should win.
Yeah, in Geelong, the Cats are indestructible there. So
GWS will put up the good fight there. They have a very competitive midfield. KP Green will obviously be a key factor into them remaining competitive in this game, but Geelong should win, as their home turf is their own little playground. They should win convincingly, and I feel like this will be the game that brings Jeremy Cameron back into form.
Yeah, I can see that. I can also see this being a 80-point blowout. Just going off, what they're doing last week, but also just going back to their home turf. So
fair enough.
Yeah, no.
Geelong, both of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next game.
Okay, we have in Darwin, Gold Coast and Bulldogs.
No one's home turf.
Not really. It's a Gold Coast home game, but it's not really a home turf, so to speak.
This is going to be a good game. A very, very good game.
Yeah.
I do feel as though Bulldogs win over the Suns though. I feel like their mature aged midfield in Bontempelli and Liberatore will tear this game apart. However, I do feel as though Rowell and Anderson will bring it up to them. But I do feel as though the Bulldogs just scratch over the line here.
That's fair enough. I have Gold Coast. Now, I do want to consider Bulldogs very, very good form. They've destroyed Adelaide in a very similar condition, right? No one's really home ground. And they blew them out of the water. And this could be a similar story. But yes, I have Gold Coast.
It's fair enough.
I don't have much reason, but I trust the process.
Trust the process.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Next game.
In Perth, West Coast hosting Essendon. Saturday night football.
Essendon should win this easily. West Coast are in shambles at the moment, and I feel like the Bombers will beat them by 30, 40 odd points.
I would say 30, 40 odd goals. But you know, not much to say about this one. Essendon.
Essendon.
You'd expect, yeah. Okay. Saturday. This should be a banger, especially considering what might happen with the coaching roles. Richmond hosting Port Adelaide at MCG.
I want to say Port Adelaide.
Mm-hmm.
Port Adelaide will win, even though their new coach, who has been announced, by the way, Elijah.
Mm-hmm.
It is, if I can find it.
We'll get into it in the final comments.
In the final comments.
We'll talk about all the Dimma stuff, yeah.
So I do feel like Port Adelaide will win, convincingly.
Yeah. I wouldn't know about convincingly, but I also have Port. I'll be remiss if I didn't acknowledge how good Richmond are at the MCG. But also Port Adelaide are in very, very hot form, similar to the Bulldogs. This one, but yeah, Port Adelaide, they should keep the ball rolling. Okay.
Next game.
All right, now I would be bewildered, aghast, and shocked if this one didn't go the way we expect. Marvel Stadium, Collingwood, North Melbourne. Collingwood.
Nah, North Melbourne. No, obviously Collingwood will win, convincingly, or vice versa. North Melbourne will be up at 3/4 time, and Collingwood will win.
I don't think that's happening. I think this one's going to get very ugly very fast, and it's not going to get any better. This is going to be primetime TV too.
Oh, jeez.
So hide your kids. This one's going to get very ugly, I reckon.
Very quickly as well.
I suggest going outside and not watching the game.
I'd go watch your local footy team play in the juniors.
I'd go watch the under 10s. There will be a better fight than this one. But anyway, last game of the round. Adelaide Oval. Crows host the Lions. Now this one's very interesting.
I've got the Lions winning.
I do too.
Oh no, actually incorrect. I do not. I've got Adelaide winning.
Yeah.
Incorrect. I am thinking of when Port Adelaide versus Brisbane round 1. Brisbane did not play very well.
Yeah.
At Adelaide Oval. So that is one of the reasons why I've got Adelaide winning. Another reason is due to the fact I reckon Adelaide will bounce back and Brisbane will be taught a bit of a lesson.
That's fair. I think Brisbane it's a lot of things to work off from last week. Whether they actually do them or not is a different story. I definitely know Fagan's going to try to get a lot of things into this team before Sunday, but Crows at home is very scary. However, I do have Brisbane. Purely based on better form. They're on a 7-win streak, and the Crows looked pretty bad last week. Even though they'll definitely show more fight on their home turf, I don't think it's going to be enough to get the chocolates.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Now, moving on, I don't really have any funny or angry moments to discuss. So
I don't either, but we should go to Player of the Week first.
Player of the Week, and then we can discuss our final messages.
Yep.
My Player of the Week was Darcy Moore, taking 10 intercept marks, nearly beating the record. He should have had 11. He's that anchor down back for Collingwood who will play week in and week out. And if he's not in All-Australian captaincy contention, I don't know who else would be.
That's fair enough. According to the AFL app stats for the game, it does say he has 11. So I don't know. But so I don't know if that actually holds up. But good call. He had a great game. On the weekend, my player, Zach Butters.
Zach Butters played fantastically.
A lot of people, probably these two are definitely the players of
Mm,
the round. Zach Butters, 41 touches, 6 marks, 3 tackles, 2 goals. He did everything
mm,
on the weekend. Um, he pretty much single-handedly beat Melbourne.
mm,
He hit fantastic game.
mm,
Really, really impressive from him. And he's putting up some Brownlow level numbers and performances
mm,
recently. He's probably going to start pushing for that too.
mm.
Um, Whether he gets over the likes of Bont and Neil and those guys, I don't know yet because there's still a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
season to play out. But at the moment, he's better than all of them.
I
So,
totally agree with that.
so hey, yeah, it's going to be a feast. Keep your eyes out for both those guys
Mm,
into the next week. Actually, maybe not for Darcy Moore. I don't think he's going to get a lot of touches against North. I don't think it's going to the defensive
mm.
50 at all. Uh, 300 to 0. Okay.
Now there are two things I'd like to discuss in the final messages, and one of them will be Damien Hardwick. I'd like to start with Alistair Clarkson because I was after our episode last week. Alistair Clarkson has stepped away from North Melbourne indefinitely, predominantly due to the fact that the Hawthorn investigation is taking too long, and I feel we can both agree that it has been quite disrespectful on Fagan and Clarkson's behalf that they haven't been able to step forward and have some form of interview about it. They've had questions asked during press conferences, but not a formal interview. And also with the people who have stated that they have been racially segregated or racially abused. They haven't really stepped forward. They've just put out messages stating, "Oh, such and such happened." So Alistair Clarkson has stepped away indefinitely. He will hopefully return to North Melbourne, but at the moment, Brett Ratton at his third club will be the interim coach at North Melbourne. Richmond, I'll let you discuss Damien Hardwick in um, more context, but Damien Hardwick has stepped down as Richmond coach, and the interim coach is a guy by the name of, if I remember correctly, Andrew McGill, who was an assistant coach at Richmond. I'll let you take the reins from here for Damien Hardwick, Elijah.
Yeah. I guess you'd expect more from this Richmond side. I had them finish. I think I had them winning this year, if I remember right.
Mm,
Um, and they're sitting in 14th, losing to Essendon. Um, and they haven't dished up at all what I guess the team wants or the board mainly wants.
mm,
So even though they beat Geelong the week before, it's still not enough. And I think
mm,
the pressure which comes from all that, um, you know, from I think mainly the board. That's kind of what's got Dimma to step down, and he's kind of moved away. It's
burnt out.
it's unfortunate to see because I think he's just a really really good coach.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's just unfortunate that with the list they have, you have too much old and new, not enough in the middle.
Mm,
Where you're basically relying on 30-year-olds to, pull out what you'd expect a 25-year-old to do week in, week
mm,
out. And I think it's just unfortunate for
mm,
Dimmer and Richmond. Um,
mm,
so, I blame the list personally for what the state they're in. Um,
mm-hmm.
but I don't think that, it was necessarily fair to suggest that it was Damien Hardwick's fault at all for anything that's happened
Mm,
at the Richmond Footy Club. If anything, he's been one of the shining lights there.
mm.
So,
So you think it's the list management?
to a degree, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it is fair at all to suggest that Damien Hardwick is the one of the main
Main
aspects.
reason.
Yeah, at all. I think he's
Mm,
one of the better things actually. Um,
mm,
because if Did he leave in his own behest or was he sacked?
He left on his own
Okay,
accord.
yeah. I think if he was sacked, I think why didn't this happen to Alden Simpson?
Do you
Um,
think he'll coach again?
oh, definitely. I want him to.
Mm.
Um,
Just at this time, the Richmond dynasty is finished.
they're cooked. No. Um,
There was a comment by Dusty Martin that Damien Hardwick said in his press conference that Dusty Martin told Damien Hardwick to go to Ibiza to sort of calm down, rejuvenate, and think about what he wants to do. Damien Hardwick, obviously at the helm since 2010. He was going to be kicked out of the club at 2016 because of they're not really winning games in that year. And then 2017, they won a grand final, so stuck by Damien Hardwick. Damien Hardwick has been one of the best coaches of the modern era. Um, Compared to Alistair Clarkson at Hawthorn, very similar, even though we both think Alistair Clarkson is the better coach. Damien Hardwick has had great success being a three-time premiership coach. And we wish Damien Hardwick the best on his future, don't we?
definitely.
Mm,
I'd definitely like to see him. Um, Again, I don't know if that's going to be at Richmond. I doubt it.
mm,
But maybe a younger team. Redo what
mm.
you did. Um,
Tasmania?
I don't think Tasmania. It's still a little while away. I'd
Mm,
expect him to come back a bit before then. So even if that's a
mm-hmm,
North Melbourne or
mm-hmm.
maybe not a Gold Coast, I think they've got what's going up there right now is pretty good. Um, I don't maybe West Coast. I don't know, but
Carlton? Carlton?
it's a
Question mark?
it's a good shout, but that's so bad for Carlton. They're
Mm.
gone for another coach, really.
Yeah, Mike, got to give Michael Voss a bit of a chance.
Yeah, you need to give him a chance.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, it's unfortunate to see right now with Dimma because
mm.
I mean I believe he's probably better coach than Clarko. Really,
Big shout, big shout.
I think Clarko on field, his teams have shown a bit of lack of willingness to adapt,
Mm-hmm,
so to speak. It's more reliant on players stepping up in big moments rather than
mm,
okay, we're going to change how the way we're playing. It's more do something.
mm-hmm.
That's not discrediting Hawthorn, 3P, or anything like that, or Clarko's legacy. I think is still one of the greatest coaches of the modern era. But I think Dimmer, great coach, and what he did over at Richmond
Mm.
shouldn't be ignored. Um, but yeah,
Fair
unfortunate
enough.
to see. And best of luck to McGill, who'll be taking over the
Mm.
reins there. There's a lot to work with. So,
He does. He does. There's still some quality players at Richmond that
oh yeah,
can put in for another couple of years. But
definitely,
for the time being, Dimmer, good luck on your future, mate. McGill, good luck. Good luck to Richmond as well this week, coming up against Port Adelaide at the MCG. Now it's just celebrating what was Damien Hardwick and what can be for the Richmond Football Club and what Damien Hardwick wants to do in his future as well.
definitely.
Mm.
Okay,
But with
anything?
that,
Yeah, anything else that you want to talk about? Touch on?
I have nothing else to really touch upon besides those two coaches stepping away from the league. I do feel it is quite ironic that Alistair Clarkson and Damien Hardwick have both stepped away because they both used to coach at Hawthorn. Alistair Clarkson and Damien Hardwick back in 2008. So whether or not um, Clarko and Damien Hardwick catch up for a couple bevos, who knows? But
Couple
we
of weak
wish both
beverages.
with beverages, couple of weak beverages. Well, we wish both coaches good luck. Hopefully, Clarkson returns and Damien Hardwick returns in another 2-3 years to rejuvenate his career as a coach.
Definitely.
Mm.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like,
Thank you,
subscribe,
guys.
all the things. Stay tuned on Twitter. Follow that.
Twitter.
And we will see you same time
And
next week, Tuesdays.
Jacob and Elijah out.